Smart24, driving business.
Where we drive your business. My name is Anthony and I am your host. This is Financial Markets, the #1 channel, and of course show that gives you the latest on the financial markets globally, regionally and domestically here in Uganda. My name is Anthony. Remember to follow us on Twitter at Smart24 TV, and you can also catch the show live at Smart24 TV Live on our YouTube live stream. And remember also to check out Altex East Africa. Now with Altex East Africa, you can buy bonds across East Africa with as little as 15,000 shillings or above. And you can do that simply by dialing *292# on your mobile phone and transact money off your mobile money wallet onto the Altex platform. Now with Altex, remember we are regulated by the Capital Markets Authority, and Altex is also situated in Uganda currently, but you can carry out trades on all the East African securities, that is in Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania. Depending on the maturities you are interested in as an investor, you can select the ones that are favorable to your tastes and preferences. Now with Altex East Africa, you can do something new, absolutely, because no one else has been able to give you that convenience, in that whether in Soroti or Kabale or Gulu, you can be able to buy or sell treasury bonds at the biggest interest rates in the land. The markets at Altex open at 15 minutes past 8 a.m. and they do close at 15 minutes past the hour of 3 p.m. Altex East Africa, of course, saying do something new. Now, of course, let's get into the stock market business here on the, of course, the African stock exchanges, but also we are going to have a look at the US stocks as well. So it's going to be an action-packed show. Now, remember last week there was a lot of gains that were announced on the big stocks there, in especially the United States. We're talking about the tech stocks like Amazon, Google, Facebook and the like. They did actually, they were able to reveal their earnings there for last week, and the stock markets actually looked good at the end of last week. But today morning, there's been a little bit of decline in the performance, and we're going to just have a look at those figures in a few minutes. But let's get to first look at the Uganda Securities Exchange here, and of course get to look at what's making the headlines. Now today, of course, Umeme comes on top of most of the headlines here at the Uganda Securities Exchange. Umeme company has been trading on the Uganda Securities Exchange since the year 2012 and serving the Ugandan business community since 2005. However, the company is going to close business very soon, in particularly, to be very specific, on the 30th of March 2025. That, of course, has meant a lot to both the shareholders but also the directors in their boardrooms, and we've seen the stock of Umeme rally on both the Uganda Securities Exchange and the Nairobi Securities Exchange. As of course the company is going to be closing in Uganda, it's pending closure of its stock on both exchanges. Now, unlike what would be expected in such circumstances, the stock has been able to beat the odds and rally the stocks, with their stock prices gaining from over 200 shillings to 300 shillings. We're going to see the details of that story as we move along the show. But remember always to check out the Uganda Securities Exchange website for some of the latest businesses on the different stocks that are listed on the stock exchange. We do have quite a lot that you need to learn about. The corporate bonds as well. Sometimes we might not have the time to fix them all in here, but we do have the corporate bonds there for different companies and other government bonds that are listed on the secondary market on the Uganda Securities Exchange. Now, getting to look at the Friday tradings, of course, today being a Monday, the markets are open. I understand it's a very busy season. It's a back-to-school season. But yes, the markets are open. Exactly 9 a.m. they were opened, and they will be closing at 1 p.m. But what was the stock market like on Friday? And this is exactly what we want to look at and analyze. Now, on aggregate, Uganda Securities Exchange had close to 3 equities that participated in the trading on Friday. Now, closing the day were actually 2 gainers and 5 losers on a market that saw the old share index, which is the benchmark index on the old Uganda Securities Exchange, climb by close to over 5.79 points. Now, the 2 gainers were Equity Bank Limited and the Jubilee Holdings Limited stock. Equity Bank gained close to a 2.21%, and the Jubilee Holdings stock gained about 1.06%. Remember, the Equity Bank Limited stock is currently still the most valuable stock on the Uganda Securities Exchange. This being a cross-listing, of course, there hasn't been much trading that is being done currently on this stock, but still that doesn't take away the fact that it's the most valuable on the Uganda Securities Exchange. Equity Group Holdings stock on Friday appreciated by 2.21%, up to 1,331.23 Ugandan shillings. And Jubilee Holdings stock also gained about 1.06%, up to 5,459 Ugandan shillings. Now, on the losing side, when you look at the losers here, still these were cross listings, mainly from the Nairobi Securities Exchange, losing on this particular day of trading. And Centum lost most on the Uganda Securities Exchange on Friday, with about 1.51% that was shed off from their price, down to 259.45 Ugandan shillings. Centum continues to register mediocre performance on the exchange. Remember, last year they lost close to 50% of the shareholders' value there on the exchange, and this year things don't look any better for Centum Investments. Well, Nation Media Group as well followed suit with a loss of 0.17%, down to 441.77 Ugandan shillings. And KCB Group as well had a loss of 0.17%, down to 1,125.86 Ugandan shillings per share. Now, Kenya Airways as well continue to also demand some few values of their shareholders at about 0.17%, down to a price of 113.18 Ugandan shillings. East African Brewers Limited lost the least value at 0.03%. Depreciation in price down to exactly 5,215 Ugandan shillings per share. Remember, on the Uganda Securities Exchange, we do have those silent equities that we normally rarely talk about, but they do exist. But just because they're not as active, but also their stocks are not as volatile. For example, the British American Tobacco Uganda currently trades their stock at 15,000 Ugandan shillings. The company lost value last year around this time, from 30,000 to 15,000. That was about 50% value that was shed off, and they haven't regained that value yet. And the Bank of Baroda Uganda at 85.0 Ugandan shillings has also been a little bit silent, but definitely comes in sometimes to have a few volumes here and there traded on the stock exchange as well. Cipla Quality Chemicals are also currently one of those listings that are currently in the average performances at 60.0 Ugandan shillings per share, and the only pharmaceutical industry that is listed on the Uganda Securities Exchange. Just about Cipla, last year Cipla actually gained their first profit since listing in 2018. Well, this year we will have their results out by the 31st of March, and a couple of days later they must of course publish those publicly for the public to actually get to review as part of the Uganda Securities Exchange rules and under the Capital Markets Authority Act there. Now, the Equity Group Holdings stock currently, remember, is the most valuable on the Uganda Securities Exchange, and they were the biggest gainer for the Friday tradings. Their price is 1,000 rather, and 331 shillings per share. As well, we had MTN Uganda have a volume of about 17,900 shares at exactly 180 shillings closing stock. Definitely, it looks like MTN is not about to leave their 180.0 shillings. When you look at the graph for MTN stock, it looks like a flat line since November. Actually, since the beginning of December, they haven't had very significant changes in price at a very stable 180 shillings. Well, the company continued to be amongst the top movers on Friday with a total of close to 17,900 shares that were recorded on the Uganda Securities Exchange on Friday. Looking at National Insurance Corporation, NIC, the company with the least price on the Uganda Securities Exchange, their closing price was 5.0 Ugandan shillings on Friday. They haven't had volumes traded recently, but they do continue to be one of those dedicated rewarders of the shareholders. Last year, they were unable to issue a dividend if you followed up with the National Insurance Corporation stock. However, they were able to issue what we call the bonus issue. And this bonus issue is extra shares that are given to shareholders at no cost. And so I think they are dedicated to their shareholders in that line. New Vision Printing and Publishing Company is another company that currently has been, of course, the apple of the eye for many shareholders, with a volume of 115 shares that were recorded for Friday. The company's stock closed at exactly 155.0 Ugandan shillings there on the stock market. Now, Umeme Limited had the biggest volume, and of course, this is obvious depending on, of course, what's happening currently in the news about the stock markets here in Uganda. The company's stock price is at 300.0 Ugandan shillings and was maintained on Friday after a total trade of over 154,700 shares on the market. Let's get to look at a little detail into the Umeme stock here, because of course we want to keep matters here in the know, especially concerning what could be the benefit to our shareholders, to the viewers here at Smart24 TV. You want to know, why are people now interested in the Umeme stock? Why is it becoming more and more valuable? Now, currently, the Umeme stock is valued at 487 billion Ugandan shillings. Now, this currently represents close to just 2.34% of the entire Uganda Securities Exchange, making the company the 8th most valuable on the Uganda Securities Exchange. The volumes on Friday, the 154,700 shares accrued a total amount of 46.4 million shares. This is the total amount of shares that Umeme was actually, the turnover that actually Umeme was able to accrue from this traded volume. Currently, they have close to 1.62 billion shares floated out there on the exchange, valued at the 487 billion. Currently, that's what we are talking about on the value here of the Uganda Securities Exchange. Now, Umeme began the year on the 1st of January with a price of 275 shillings. That changed to 300 shillings currently, a 9.09% gain, which is currently the first in year-to-date performance on the Uganda Securities Exchange. As if that is not enough, the Umeme stock is currently the second most traded on the stock, meaning it's the second most recently traded on. In other words, many people are getting to interest themselves with the Umeme stock. In the last 3 months, to be specific, from the 2nd of November to the 3rd of February, the Umeme stock has traded close to 24.6 million shares, valued at 6.1 billion Ugandan shillings on the Uganda Securities Exchange. Now that shows you how much of interest the stock has become. I remember I told you this before we started the year, that if you're interested in buying stock in Umeme, better do it in December. And then Umeme, you know, of course, at then it was at about 210, 250, and 275. Then we get into 2023. Now the company stock is at 300 shillings. And that is not about to go down, according to the current figures that we are seeing on the Uganda Securities Exchange. Now, from 2012, Uganda, the Umeme company on the Uganda Securities Exchange had about 275 as their initial price, in which now currently, when you count the total wealth of the shareholders who bought shares back then to currently what is happening on the stock, they are 15.5 billion shillings richer. People who bought stock in Umeme earlier are actually 15.5 billion shillings wealthier, and at least 622,378,000 shares were offered in 2012, valued at 171.1 billion. Now, the stock market rally had boosted Umeme's value on the Uganda Securities Exchange to over 186.7 billion. So only gains from here onwards. And of course, like I mentioned, of course, the supply is limited. Stockbrokers are coming out to say very few people are willing to sell their stock off of Umeme, and that makes, of course, it very hard for the new shareholders to come on board. But regardless, you can try, get in touch with your stockbroker and see if you can get to access some of this stock at Umeme. It would definitely be something you would not regret doing in the near future. Now, in summary, on the Uganda Securities Exchange, we had a total turnover of just about 49 million, basically mainly from the Umeme trading, which had about 46 million contributed to that market turnover. But regarding the local company index, it maintained its value at 274.1 points, meaning the local stocks did not appreciate that much in value or in price. Currently, they're on a one-week gain of about, when you look at the four-week gain rather, of about 0.53% on our old local company index. So the local companies are doing much better currently, basically looking at, in contrast with the cross listings there from Nairobi. Talking about Nairobi, let's get to visit the Nairobi Securities Exchange and have a look at the tradings there on the Friday trades. Now, in total, we just had about 44 NSE listed equities participating in trading on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. The day ended with 17 gainers and over 15 losers on the market. Sasini Tea and Coffee led the gainers at over close to 6.98% that was gained on their value. Very many coffee and small scale agricultural companies on the Nairobi Securities Exchange currently are performing way better than they used to. Of course, given the market conditions now, there are very few foreign investors into the Nairobi market, and so many of the local investors are interested more in these growth enterprise segment markets and companies. Now, Uchumi Supermarket also gained 5%, and Total Kenya had a total of about 4.2% that was accrued on their stock price. NCBA Group added close to 2.6% on their value as well. On the losing side, Crown Paints Kenya continued to lose most of its value there on the market at 8.93%, lost on Friday, down to 35.20 Kenyan shillings per share. Williamson Tea Kenya lost close to 5.71%, and East African Cables lost close to 5%, and Car and General also lost at least 4.44% on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Safaricom continued to record the biggest volume at close to over 1.75 million shares, and was followed by KCB Group at close to 1.04 million shares, and Kenya Power and Lighting Company closing at 649,000 shares, whereas Diamond Trust Bank had about 182,000 shares there that were recorded. Now, the NSE All Share Index increased by 1.58 points at a 1.24% gain, up to about 129.24 points. All thanks to mainly these big stocks and also the small stocks that were able to trade and appreciate in price, contributing to this gain in the All Share Index. Currently, we have a one-week gain on the all-share index of about 2.51% and a year-to-date gain of 1.39%. Generally meaning if you've been investing in the Nairobi Securities Exchange stocks, you have definitely gained value, at least in the weekly as well as year-to-date value. Other remarkable indices like the NSE 20 and the NSE 25 continued as well to rally the Nairobi markets at a 0.35% and 1.02% gain respectively. Remember, on the Nairobi Stock Exchange, there are a variety of products, and this is the diversification we kind of lack on our Uganda Securities Exchange. On the Nairobi Securities Exchange, you don't just have shares to buy out and that's all. We do have exchange traded funds, we do have derivative products. Of course, these require more financial knowledge and of course more research to get to know when to invest in what. But basically, exchange traded funds and derivatives are derived from the general or the conventional stocks or shares that we all now probably understand. And so definitely check out the Nairobi Securities Exchange this week for the big gains there on especially the big companies like the Kenya Power and Lighting Company, KCB, and Safaricom as well. Currently getting to look at the overview of the Africa stocks here. Zimbabwe Stock Exchange had a very great day of trading on Friday, appreciating close to 1,129 points on their benchmark index, and the Nigeria Stock Exchange as well appreciated 214 points upwards on their all-share index. Johannesburg Stock Exchange as well rallied at 438 points on their benchmark index. Generally speaking, the markets really looked really nice on the African continent, and definitely we look forward to a better week as we of course get to start a new week ahead, and bigger gains as well for you, the participants in this week's trading. Now let's get to look into the US stocks here briefly as we of course analyze what took place in what seemed to be the busiest week on Wall Street at the moment since the year began. Now, the recent stock market rally and whether momentum can hold up into February will be the main focus of the week ahead as investors continue to pass through a torrent of corporate financial results this week as well. Now, Wall Street faces a lean economic calendar in the coming days, but a hefty docket of earnings, especially from companies like Walt Disney, Uber, and Pinterest there as well, among the headliners as reports figures for the fourth quarter are being unveiled. Now, while few government data releases are on a tap in this first week of February, on the economic front, remarks from the Federal Reserve Chairman, Mr. Jerome Powell, will be highlighted this week. There will be big highlights for the week. Powell is scheduled to be interviewed by billionaire Shell Group founder David Rubenstein in the Economic Club of Washington, D.C. tomorrow on Tuesday. Now, U.S. stocks dropped Friday after a stunning January jobs report showed that the payrolls grew by more than 500,000 last month. And this dampened, of course, prospects of an imminent pause by the Federal Reserve rate hiking campaign, a key factor in propelling the January rally. Now, when you look at the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq Composite, they closed the week higher, advancing 1.6% and 3.3% respectively. The Dow, however, failed to eke out a weekly gain, ending the past 5 trading days down by 0.2%. The U.S. economy added about, when you look at the jobs data, which is a very key aspect about the U.S. market, the U.S. economy added close to 517,000 jobs last month, blowing out economists' expectations for a reading of about 188,000 jobs, while the unemployment rate fell 3.4%, the lowest since 1969. Well, that's it, my friends. Thank you so much for watching. We are Smart24 TV, and we mean business and drive business in East Africa. Remember, you can catch the latest business content every weekday, 24 hours and 7 days a week. And also remember to follow the show, to follow the different platforms, on the different platforms at Twitter, on YouTube, and our, of course, channels on GOTV and DSTV for your latest business news. My name is Anthony. Remember also to check out Otex East Africa, our glad sponsors here on the show. They can give you, so many offers. You can learn more about the products. You can be able to buy or sell treasury bonds now using your mobile phone by simply dialing *292#. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you tomorrow, same time, same place. Bye for now.